so I bought a Renault. Please insert card. Put this in here. Start the car. This car was a bit of an impulse buy. I was after a second-hand spare car under $10,000. Had no plans to buy a Renault whatsoever. Actually just got on car sales and had a look at what was available for under 10 grand. I wanted something that was good to drive in traffic. You know, I didn't want some big barge. I wanted a manual. I preferred a boosted engine if possible, but I was pretty open. There's quite a few cars available now for under $10,000, and a lot of the turbo ones actually, because I'm pretty sure in Victoria a lot of P-platers can't drive certain cars, so it actually makes second-hand cars rather cheap. I did consider buying a Mark V Golf GTI, but they're just everywhere. And I just saw this pop up. It's a Renault Megane Sport 225. 225 stands for 225 horsepower or about 170 kilowatts, I think it is. Turbo 2-litre engine. I don't know anything about the engine, what sort of booster runs, compression, nothing. I haven't looked it up. So I saw this one for sale. It stood out a bit because it's red. My very first car was a red car. That's going back, geez, over 20 years ago now. That's makes me a bit old. Yeah, it was red, so it stood out. So I looked them up for about half an hour on Google and found a little bit of information about them. You know, they're a pretty good handling car. But, you know, being Renault, you know, people either love them or hate them, the French cars. But like any car, you know, generally late model cars, as long as they're serviced properly, they're usually fairly good. This one had pretty good service history. It's got 150,000 Ks on it, but it has got quite comprehensive service history, and about 15,000 Ks or so ago, it had a new clutch put in. These run a dual mass flywheel type clutch, so I think just the clutch install was nearly $3,000, so that was a bit of a plus. I only paid $7,000 for this car with a roadworthy, new tyres, so I can't really say I could go wrong. Like I said, in Australia, you don't see that many of these on the road. I have no idea how many Renaults sold, but they're a nice little car. Fantastic engine, super responsive, way more responsive than my Subaru. The Subaru's just, if it's not on boost, it's just all lag and no torque. It's a bit of a wake-up call when you hop into a car that's really responsive. It's always on boost, considering it's got quite tall gears in it. Like at 100 Ks on the freeway, you're only doing a touch over 2,000 RPM, whereas a Subaru's doing closer to 3,000. Yeah, one other reason I bought it as well is I've never actually owned a European car. I've owned quite a few Japanese cars, a few Aussie cars, but yeah, European cars never really grabbed me, to be honest. So I thought I'd give one a try. A few things I like and dislike about the car. We'll start with the things I do dislike about the car. The fit and finish on it's a bit average. Like this center console here is just terrible. For a car that sold for like, I think over $40,000 new, it's pretty average. This is, however, this is a 2008 model, so I'm led to believe this is like a Series 2 model or they're something like that. So the instrument cluster and that, does look a lot nicer than the earlier models. The panel gaps, that sort of thing, is very average. This car's a few years old, so it's probably had a few knocks here and there, but overall it's not that great. Leather seats, I'm not really a fan of leather seats. I'd prefer to not have leather seats, but I don't think these cars came with any other option. The seats aren't too bad. I did own a Honda Integra Type S a few years back, and those leather seats were probably a bit nicer than these, but overall they're not too bad. I like the fact it's a 4-door. That was one reason I bought it. I'm a bit over owning 2-door cars. I've got the kids' seat in the back. There's enough room in it for me. I don't need a big car. Yeah, like I said, the engine's fantastic. The gearbox isn't too bad. It's a 6-speed manual. Brakes, pretty good brakes. It has factory Brembo brakes on the front. Not many small cars have factory Brembo, so that was a bonus. It's got 235mm rubber all round, 18-inch. The wheels look pretty good for standard wheels. And it came with Bridgestone Adrenaline RE003 tyres, so they're pretty good. I've taken it for a few drives in the hills, and yeah, for a standard car, standard suspension and everything, it's really good. Now the car did come with some sort of internet tune. What that means is, I don't know, it's had some sort of, I don't know if you call it a flash tune, but it's had an internet tune from Europe, and I was just told I had to run it on 98 octane, which is fine. I would have run it on 98 octane anyway. I might throw it on the dyno. I think these make about 115 kilowatts of the wheels standard, somewhere around there. So maybe I'll put it on the dyno and see if it actually is any more power than standard, but it goes quite well. It doesn't fall off. I think these are rated to around somewhere around low 6 seconds, 0 to 100, and it certainly would do that. It feels like that. Yeah, like I said, this is a bit of a spare car, so I don't want to spend too much money on it. I just would rather it be reliable. Saying that, why would you buy a French car if you want reliability? I told a few people I was buying a Renault and they said I was mad. I'm open to doing some cost-effective budget style modifications to it. What they would be, I don't know. I don't know enough about them and what works and what doesn't. One thing's for sure, I don't want it loud. The Subaru, I'd like to make the Subaru a bit quieter. It sometimes annoys me. So I'd rather have this car fairly quiet. Also, I might do a track day in this car. I'm pretty sure it's done track days before. It's got a little bit of sandblasting behind the wheels, which is a bit of a giveaway that it has been to the track. I sort of figured it would have been. Most people who buy these cars are sort of into that sort of thing. It's fairly good on fuel. Around town, it probably does around 11 litres for 100 Ks. On the freeway, on the highway, it's probably more like low 8s, which is fairly, this is totally acceptable in a car like this. And generally these sorts of cars, you do drive them on boost a bit. Yeah, so if you're in the market for a cheap car, maybe have a look at one. This was the only one I test drove as well. I went and looked at it. I didn't try and haggle the guy the price. Most of these for sale are, from what I saw, are more like between 10 and 12,000 generally. And the owner said he couldn't sell it, so he just dropped the price and obviously sold it straight away. So I didn't bother trying to break his balls over the price. It was extremely fair what he was asking. So if you have any ideas of what we could possibly do to this car, drop us a line in the comments, I should say, and we'll certainly have a look at that. A car like this is sort of in its element on a windy road like this, but it doesn't help when you're stuck behind someone doing 20 kilometers an hour under the speed limit. That's just standard practice in Australia. So taking away from the fact that this is wrong wheel drive, effectively front wheel drive, once you're going, it doesn't really feel much slower than my Subaru, which is pretty sad really, but in first and second gear, the traction control will come on a fair bit, like now. Obviously, if you took this car to a track day, you'd have to turn off the stability and traction control because it would just be too inhibiting. I think that this could actually take Giordo's GSR in a drag race. We might have to set that up. But like the GSR, I mean, I could be wrong. I'm certainly no expert on Renaults, but I don't think this car has a standard LSD. Not that I'd waste money putting an LSD in a car like this.